You're listening to the Savoir-Faire Audio Experience.
Are you ready?
The Savoir-Faire Experience is your guide to everything that has to do with lifestyle. From dating, rides, style, and entertainment. All brought to you by the editor of Savoir-Faire magazine, Robert White. Anything goes on this audio experience. So, let's go.
It's still the best.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Savoir-Faire Audio Experience. We appreciate you guys following, sharing, and just interacting with us, which is so cool. We're starting to see comments and stuff as well. We always just want to bring you really cool people that we interview and give you the behind-the-scenes part of the conversation. And today's really no exception to that rule. Very excited to talk to this person because I have a very unique story we'll talk about in a second. But Christian Dryden is here from the Ritualists. How you doing? What's going on?
How's it going, Robert? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you finding some time in your hectic life to, stop by and talk about music with me a little bit. There's definitely some cool things here that you guys have going on that I want to tap onto. You got a new album. There's some cool singles coming out. There's some really wacky but fun YouTube videos and music videos out. So I want to talk to you a lot about that inspirational aspect of your music. But let's just dive into a little bit about who you guys are and the Ritualists and who you are before we kind of dive in a little bit deeper, just so my audience has an understanding of what's going on here.
For sure. So do you want me to give you a bit of a background on the band?
Yeah, I want to know a little bit about you, and then I'd love to learn about how the band came together and what you guys have been up to.
Okay, so I've been basically into music my whole life. I'm a multi-instrumentalist. I actually started out as a drummer. Those were the first sort of band experiences I had, but I'd always been a singer. And then I kind of moved off the drum set onto the bass so I could write and sing and not be one of those singing drummers. I didn't think that was the best visually. Mm-hmm. So I got off the drum stool and started to play bass and write, and I sing and write on bass. And the guys I found in the band are all now New York-based, Brooklyn, New York, Northern New Jersey. And on the keyboards, we have Jeffrey Andrew. He's been with me the longest. On the guitar, it's David Andriana. And on the drums is Eric Hubie. And I play bass and I sing in the band.
Okay, very cool. So how did you guys all come together? Tell me the story about how you guys met.
Well, each individual was very different. With Jeffrey, he was he was the brother of a fan of the band. So I'd always known I wanted to do a lot of synth stuff with the music, and I'd always written, synth parts and synth melodies, but I couldn't find the right player. And there was a really cool guy who was coming out to our shows who dug the band. And after one of the shows, we struck up a conversation. I mentioned to him how I was looking for a keyboardist, and he said, "Really? Brother's a great keyboardist." I said, "Really? And you just told me this now?" So, and that's how I met Jeff, and he's great because he's a really seamless combination, if you can imagine, of Nick Rhodes. He has Nick Rhodes mentality with the programming and whatnot, but he also has the chops of like a Keith Emerson. Not that we need him to play like Keith Emerson, but he is classically trained, so he really sets the foundation. When I come with songs, he makes certain that it makes musical sense to a degree. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have to be perfect, but so he's great with that. And on the guitar with David answered an ad on Craigslist, actually. And he was one of a few different guitar players that we'd sort of auditioned, and David came in, and he didn't really learn the songs well, but I heard something in him when he auditioned. I thought he reminded me a little bit of Jeff Beck, how he was able to make the guitar sound really unique without using a ton of pedals. Mm-hmm. And just an excellent player, excellent timing, and an incredible memory for songs. So some of our songs have a lot of chords, and it's great to work with someone who can just pick that up quickly, and you don't have to spend all of your time going over, the chord progressions, and you can instead work out, cool parts to put over those chords. So Dave's great for that. And on the drums, it's Eric. And Eric Hubie is the newest member of the band. This record that we just finished, Too Pure to Cure, is the first album that he appears on. I actually played the drums on Baroque and Bleeding, which was recorded during the pandemic. We recorded that with Ed Buller. But Eric is a great addition because Eric live can play to a click really well, and that enables Jeffrey on the keyboards to feature all of those layers of arpeggiators and synth pads and whatnot to the live show. We don't use pre-recorded vocals or anything like that, but it is great to have someone who can play along with those timed keyboard effects. So he really adds a new element to the live show with the band. So they're all great guys.
That's awesome. I was listening to some of the newer music from the new album today. Mm-hmm. I wanted to kind of get a dive of it all, and I was gonna. Cool. I shared this with you before we started recording, mm-hmm. and as I'm listening through it all and kind of checking everything out, literally 2 days ago, I was going through a list of songs that I had Shazammed back in the day that were all stored on a playlist. And so it was kind of interesting because our Ritualist song was on there, and a minute ago I couldn't remember what it was called. Now I do. It's called She's the Sun. I just looked it up. Oh, wow. And it was from 2019, right? That's an older mm-hmm. track. It came off the Painted People album, right?
That was our first record, yep.
Yeah, way back in the beginning of that. I was at an event and somebody was playing it just on their home, radio system or whatever, a record or whatever. And I remember Shazamming it because I thought it was so cool, and then put it on a playlist, and it just kind of been sitting there. And then just a few days ago was when I started kind of going through that playlist, and then boom, I ended up with an opportunity to talk to you, which is very, very unique. I feel like I kind of, brought it into fruition or something.
So fortuitous. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's very unique. I was curious though about the genre, because you guys have a very kind of old school, I want to say 70s, 80s kind of vibe to you, even though you're a modern day rock band, I guess. Is that the mm-hmm. genre you guys like to hang out into?
Well, I don't, people ask me this, and I don't sort of have a preconceived notion of our sound before I write something. Mm-hmm. It's just sort of the way the music naturally comes out of me when I write. And I think as rock musicians, much of the stuff that we really love came from those decades that you've referenced. And I think we're trying to do, I guess, we're doing our own spin on it, but we're not huge fans of a lot of modern top 40, for instance. So mm-hmm. I don't think it's a surprise that our sound would be a bit different from what, the pop music of today. I don't think, it's not that I don't think we're commercial. I just think that you're correct in that you're hearing elements that were more common to the radio airwaves of the 1980s, for instance.
Yeah, I feel like it's a very David Bowie vibe. That's the first artist I can think of that's similar.
Oh yeah, I'm a Bowie fanatic, and I
okay,
think
good.
I think any rocker worth his salt who denies David Bowie doesn't know what the heck he's doing, or he has something wrong with his ears. So
yeah, that's good. Bowie. I feel like there's a creative that was kind of always developed and put out into the music with David Bowie, and you guys seem to tap into a lot of that stuff. You kind of bring the lyrics that you guys write and the way you guys perform, you kind of bring it to life in a very unique way, and that's the part that I think really makes you guys stand out and isolates you, which is great, because there's so much music that's so common, right? It just all sounds the same. It's very cookie cutter, productive, whatever, and I feel like you guys are really kind of isolating yourselves in a special category. So I'm glad you didn't say no, we're not, we're just rock. I'm glad you gave me the right answer and said it's just, you don't put yourself in a genre in that regard. There's definitely inspiration that I can feel and hear in your music, which is probably why I liked it even back then when I heard it, but it's very kind of cool and unique. But I want to dive into that creative with you, because this is a very unique concept with this new album that you guys released. So the album's called Too Pure to Cure, which I love.
Yep.
And there's a bunch of different tracks that just have already been released from this one. But one of the songs that I was listening to today and watching the music video for on YouTube was The Wake. And It's like a cool little adventure thing. But what I liked about the video is that you guys just use your own backyard, like it's all these New York City scenes in there.
Yeah.
So it's very
Yeah.
cool. Talk to me about the song, the creative behind it, and then maybe some of the ideas of why you used, the backdrop of New York City for the music video.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. The Wake is one of my favorites. It was actually the last song we recorded for the album. And we kind of rushed to get it on the record. It almost didn't make it onto the record, but I insisted that it be on the record because I think it's one of the better songs we've recorded. I wrote the song, the chorus of the song that the song opens with. It opens with the chorus, and then it repeats. Kind of just a lot of things that I write just come to me when I'm in the shower. Don't ask me why. I mean, maybe it's because my mind just is completely relaxed and I'm not thinking about anything else. There's nothing to really distract me. And I came out of the shower singing that chorus, and I said, "Oh, this is really this is cool. This is something I think I can work with." And I walked over to my trusty drum machine, and I dialed in a beat that I sort of envisioned for it. And I worked out a verse, and I said to myself, this harkens back to those like mid-'80s dark young adult fantasy. It was like a strange phenomenon, I think, in the 80s, I guess, where, they were making movies for, I guess, 11-year-olds that were kind of scary. Like The Never-Ending Story is the first one that came to mind, but Legend, Labyrinth, of course, The Dark Crystal, and even some of the animated stuff like Watership Down and that one with the rats, so The Secret of Nim. Mm-hmm. So all of this stuff, it sort of reminded me of that, and particularly Lamal's soundtrack on The Never-Ending Story, that song, and that's sort of where I did like a sped up version of Lamal's Galloping Groove for the verses of The Wake. And I was like, this is cool. And, one of the reasons I think dark fantasy worked for kids and still does, I mean, some of those Grimm's fairy tales are quite dark as well. And I think it's sort of, if I could explain it in my armchair psychologist sort of way, but when you're a kid, it seems like the highs are so high and the lows are so super low. Everything is very dramatic, like in a hyper sort of way. But then, something horrible will happen to you at school, and it'll be like the worst moment in your life, right? And then you'll get home from school and you'll be playing, wiffle ball or something with your friends, and all will be forgotten, And I think that's sort of what that dark fantasy plays into. Like there are moments in these films where it's like, oh my God, if I were a little kid and I saw this monster, I would lose my mind. And then like 10 minutes later, they're like frolicking in a field, So I said to myself, oh, this is a cool idea. And there are adults who overcome like incredible obstacles. And it's like they've retained sort of this youthfulness, and I am not one of them. and I'd like to tap into that, and be like a more stable human being. And that's sort of what The Wake is about, is recognizing that, you think about when you're a child and how you dealt with things, and maybe those might be some answers to how you can deal with things and adversities as an adult. And that's sort of how the songwriting process came to be. I presented it to the band, and they were really sort of hesitant at first, aside from Jeffrey, who loved it for the synths that I wanted on it. But the other guys thought it was way too poppy. And I said, no, trust me, it's going to work. And we brought it to our producer, Mario, and I sold him on it. And we recorded the track at Clive Davis Studios in Brooklyn, which is a beautiful studio.
Legendary location, actually.
Yeah. And we were honored to do it. And as far as the video, I know this is taking a little bit longer to explain than I thought. But video, the video we wanted, I said to the director, Hypnodoll, I was like, I want to do like Never-Ending Story. And she and I are old friends, and she was like, well, we always talk about how everyone has a spirit animal. Let's use that and have everyone become their spirit animals in the video. And we'll shoot it at all of these like bizarre locations in Brooklyn. And some of those shots are actually at her home in Brooklyn, which looks like an art exhibit. And she lives with all of these artists, so they've like beautified the area. And so while there are fantastical elements, it also has that gritty New York thing going on. And I think kind of ties the whole thing together.
So one of the scenes in the music video that I recognized now that you're talking about it, so that whole backyard scene where they put the lights on the fence and whatever, that's what you're talking about? That was just in her backyard?
Yeah, they built that. Yeah, they built that for the video, yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. I was looking through some of that stuff and I saw that. I was like, oh, someone put some effort into making sure this was cool. But I like the idea that it's all the spiritual animals of other things. So you're the ringleader then. That's just what your spirit animal is.
Well, the whole thing is, okay, I'm the outsider, right? So I don't understand how these people can be happy and enjoying themselves and embracing their spirit animals. And I'm like kind of on the outside. And then by the end of the video, I'm sort of joined into the fray. And that's sort of, like an awakening.
I see.
And
yeah.
That's sort of the, I mean, it's a rock and roll video. It's fun. It's not,
Yeah, exactly.
Has some short film elements, but not exactly.
No, I like it. I was watching and listening to it, and it's a good vibe. It's like a very interesting thing. There's a lot of things happening in the video, so you can't like really take your eyes away. There's a lot of times when I'll go on YouTube and like I'll build a playlist or something on there and just hit play and then like go clean the house. This is not a video you can walk away from. When this pops up, like you have to stop and be like, okay, I need to see this one through because this is very unique. And so I was impressed with the design of it all. Yeah, it's like you have to sit and watch this thing. So what about the You Know Better? That's also part of this album, right?
Mm-hmm. It absolutely is, yeah.
Yep, so that's another video that you guys put out too. I wanted to dabble a little bit on that track. Give me some creative about how this song came to, and then how the band responded and turned it into a Ritualist song.
Sure. Well, the band really... for this one, I really wanted to challenge the band. As I've gotten more into bass playing, I've really gotten into the post-punk sort of disco-infused grooves of bands, particularly early Duran Duran stuff. And I'd written this bass line, and I thought it was kind of cool. And I started to put some lyrics over it, and I introduced it to the band, and they immediately just jumped on it. And they kept saying to me, "Oh, are you sure? This is the direction for this song." And I was like, "Yeah, man, just push the envelope. Like we're going to do like a dark disco number, with my style of singing over it. But let's make the backbeat and everything like a dark sort of disco themed." And that's I think the way it worked out. I'm particularly proud of the pocket that Eric laid down on this one with the bass. I think it's a cool pocket, and it's not, again, like you had said, it's not something you're hearing in a lot of modern rock tracks.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool, and this kind of stuff, we've gotten more and more. There's a song on Baroque and Bleeding called Of Anonymity where we kind of flirt with this vibe as well. And this is informed also and inspired by our audience, because we've noticed playing shows, particularly in the New York area, that the songs that people can move to really, really get a great response and enjoyment from the crowd. And while I don't write songs for the audience, I write them because I'm making art and I want to try to make something beautiful. But it also is great to give energy and then be fed back energy. And that was definitely in the back of my mind when we were working on this song. Mario McNulty, the producer of the new record, really dug in with, getting the drums and the bass in the right pocket and position with the arpeggiators that are being used on the keyboards. It's like a delicate balance, and I was really happy with the way he did that. Lyrically, it's sort of about the whole tendency. I mean, as humans, we always have a tendency to just think we know more than we do,
True.
It's like everybody's an expert and everybody's a critic, particularly when it comes to art. But I mean, that's a whole other argument. But and I think with the age of the internet, the information age in which we live now, I'm going to Google something and get an answer, and I will now be able to question or debate someone who's been studying this for 10 years. Now, 99.9% of the time, the person who studied it for 10 or 20 years is going to have better answers than your Google search will, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think people need to recognize, every once in a while, an outsider will come with a crazy idea that actually ends up being true, sure. But for the most part, I think that's one of the downsides of this information age is the way information has been sort of brought to the people generally writ large. I don't know that we're mentally really prepared for this. It's sort of like a gorilla a machine gun,
Yeah, it's very interesting for sure. What do you kind of feel like? I mean, on the same topic for sure, but how do you feel like the music industry has changed? What do you see from you've been in the industry for a really long time doing some good stuff, right? So from the beginning of your career when we all went to the music store to buy CDs and records, and that was the way, and now we're putting everything online, and you're watching music videos on YouTube more than MTV. Give me some other things that you kind of have noticed that have either changed for the positive or negative in music in general.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been in the industry since, I'll say, 2018. Okay, so we signed our first deal in 2019, and even in that time, which is significant but not too long, I've noticed changes. I've noticed changes to even the way music journalism is working. It was still in 2018, 2019, very journalist magazine driven. When we first sort of broke in, and now it's, for this latest record, a lot of the press we're doing, it's much more, it's interview heavy, it's podcast heavy. Obviously terrestrial radio is not even a factor. I mean, it's not even not even really mentioned. It's all about podcasts and playlists, and vinyl has made a comeback, which is cool.
Yeah, very cool.
But vinyl's also, it adds another thing you have to bring on tour or fly with. So there's that downside. So I think, and obviously we don't live in the MTV age. Unfortunately, when if you had a video on MTV and it was played in prime time, that was it. You made it. Now you have to try to break on YouTube, where basically everyone is just, searching for things they already like. So it's very, very hard to break into people's sort of music routines. And that's the challenge today. And I don't think anyone in the industry understands quite how to do that. I really, I guess getting onto a festival would be one way, partnering up with national acts that are already well established and having their fans get turned on to you. Maybe that's the way to do it, but I don't think the record labels really even understand what's going on right now. I don't either.
I think the music industry needs to take a page from social media influencers, which is wild to think, but there has to be some kind of aspect of here's an example, right? We just released the Savoir Faire new issue. Shameless plug. It's available on the website. The person on the cover of the magazine is Anna Seiss, and she was a TikTok, Instagram, social influencer with millions and millions of followers way before she ever launched her music career. And then she decided she wanted to go into music and instantly had success because she had millions and millions of people behind her. And then you have another example where you're an excellent musician, you're a great singer, you have all this talent you had for years. You finally got your break in 2018 when you guys signed with the label and started putting some stuff out. And so there's no cult following, I guess, attached. And so I feel like the social media influence, you need something that's like lightning in a bottle to make it huge in the music industry as a new artist. Like something that people start putting on all their videos, something that starts getting shared because it's maybe over the top or kind of silly. Like there has to be something that grabs an audience that makes it super unique, which, by the way, I think The Wake is your video for that. And better, you guys have a really very cool style that needs to be kind of spread out a little bit further, and people need to go look at it. But I think it's really just tapping into the viral moment. If a band can get a viral moment from the music industry, like if that can be created, then I think that's the launching point. And then, like you said, touring is really weird now too. People are going out to concerts and doing stuff like that, but I don't think that touring is like really the big ticket. I feel like it really is getting on those bigger stages at those, bigger shows and being part of those festivals and things like that. That seems to be the thing that people are attaching themselves to. Like if so-and-so is on a stage with this artist, then they must be relevant, and now we'll start listening to them. It's a really weird vibe now, right?
Yeah, it's really strange. And I hear what you're saying about the influencer, and that's good for her or he. I'm not sure if it was
her.
If the person her, but what I think gives you, I use the word credibility with music fans is think about musicians can become actors and they are given oftentimes serious consideration. Actors who've tried to become musicians rarely get off the ground, and because there's something I think it's really fascinating and it's telling, and I don't know if it still holds, but that was the consensus for a long time. And I think it's because of this idea as like a musician, there is a path you take as a musician and like a trajectory, like a natural trajectory. And the way it used to be, it's like, if you're coming up in the 60s, you're digging up old blues records and you're the Rolling Stones or you're Led Zeppelin. And if it's the 80s, you're digging up Bowie, and you're coming from something that came before and you're building on greatness, right? The idea that I happen to be, very popular with my friends for something completely unrelated to being a musician, and now I'm going to present my music to you because I'm already popular. That's an interesting strategy, and maybe it'll work. But I think that that was a thing that a lot of actors tried, especially I think in the 80s, and it didn't go over as well. So maybe that's different, but
yeah,
you might have the answer there. For me, I'm not sure what the answer is. I think maybe the video thing is definitely an avenue, but I surely don't think the labels have they have the answers. I think they're scrambling and trying to figure things out. Cap it off. Also, nobody's making money from album sales really because of the streaming.
And it's unfortunate because you almost can't sell it, right? Like if you put a price tag on your stuff, it's not going to get listened to. So you have to put it out.
You're dead.
You have to put it out for free. It's got to be on every platform for free. And then you just have to hope that like enough people listen to say, hey, you guys should come to Chicago because we have a big audience for you here. You know what I mean?
And the way I do it is with new music, I'll listen to it on Spotify first. And if I like it, I will then go and buy the vinyl. Okay. So I use Spotify as like a commercial for the music. And that's what I tell the guys in the band too, when we're doing these videos and putting stuff online. I was like, just think of it as like free advertising, right? It's a commercial for our records or for our shows. But then the question becomes, how do you get your commercial to enough people, to the masses, right? That's the key. That's the key.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think there's probably a coalition with social media influencers and musical artists that it may be even that, okay, so a clothing brand wants to get their stuff on really popular influencers because it launches the brand for them. It may be getting an influencer to share, hey, I'm listening to this music. And that might be the trick. I don't know. It's just a weird environment to kind of figure out the advertising strategy of stuff. And like you said, we're talking about you and I are talking like on a podcast and putting an article out. And the magazine world used to be a very big thing. If you got published within a specific magazine, you made it. If you were on primetime MTV, you made it. It's a very different environment now for musical acts to really get the home run. There still must be a philosophy that can be attached, and who knows what that is. Maybe I'll figure it out and get rich. I'm not sure, but
yeah. Well, if you do, feel free to let me know.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put you guys. Ritualists will be the first example of how it works. So I want to talk about this calendar year for you guys, 2025.
Sure.
Where are you guys playing? Where can people hear you live and stuff right now?
Okay, so our next bunch of shows, I'm actually going to get calendar in front of me. So we have a show, we're playing the end of the month. We're doing a little tour, and we're playing the artist who painted the portraits that grace the cover of our album. He was at first a New York artist, but he's a transplant. Now he lives in Wilson, North Carolina. He has a big, beautiful art studio there, and he's doing an exhibition based around our album cover, and we're going to be performing there.
Oh, cool.
So we're doing a show in Raleigh on 4/25, and then we're playing that Saturday. That's 4/26, right? Is that Saturday? Yeah, we're playing that Saturday at the Downtown Public House, and that's the art studio, basically album release for the artwork. And then we're doing the 27th, and that's a Sunday at the Westville Pub in Asheville, North Carolina, which is a real cool rock and roll town. It's a super artsy town. We'll be back in New York on May 20th at New Blue, and then we will be doing our official album release party for New York on June 7th on the rooftop of Our Wicked Lady in Brooklyn, which is a really cool spot. They have an outdoor situation with their roof that they can open the roof up in the summer, and it's crazy. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think June 7th is when I'm going to see you guys live. I'm going to put it on my calendar and make sure I'm in town.
Awesome. So. And that's also part of, I do this semi-regular party in New York called Glamourpuss.
Okay.
Where I get like visual artists and bands that I handpick and MCs, and it's all kinds of crazy, and it's like a multimedia event. And that June 7th show will be a Glamourpuss party. So there will be a lot of stuff. There will be DJs. There will be a lot going on there in addition to the live music.
Yeah, that sounds really cool, man. I love it. Very, very
cool.
Interesting. So I'll make sure we tell the world where you guys are at. The Ritualists.com is the website. They have Instagram under the same name, the Facebook under the same name. Go chase down the YouTube videos. Make sure you're watching, seeing the commercials for what the brand's got going on. Yeah, it's just good. It's really solid stuff. You guys are on all streaming platforms. I found you all over the place. So hopefully people will get out there and really check out the music. But, it was a really cool conversation, Christian, and I appreciate some of your candorness with me today and just being able to connect and talk. It's kind of cool that it went full circle, that you guys were really unknown to me, but I loved your music 6 years ago when it first came out. And here we are now 6 years later. We get to have a conversation about that. So I really appreciate your time today.
Right on, Robert. Thank you so much for having me. And please, if you do come out on June 7th, be sure to come up to me and say hello.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your time, man. Appreciate it.
Man, thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the show. Please take a minute to head over to www.savfair.com and subscribe to our publication.